En labrang tundub said, Sultan Agernus. It was maybe 85. I was with Tinley, by the way. I was in Tinley's house in Saldong. And I tell him, Tiokeoyo, and he says, well, it's a ladder. A ladder? A ladder, barang baniko. Keko lagi barang. And he talks, we were very close to one another. You know, we were that far in the cliff, you know, 150 meters tall cliff. We were this far from each other. And the bees all around, the rope, the camera. Sylvain was a very good climber, a friend of mine who was helping me with the camera, who was my camera assistant, hanging from the cliff, the smoke, the bees, the heat, the height, freaky.
Namaste, this is Sunil Rajdakal from the channel Khojpatra. Today we are in talk with one of the greatest director from France. For the first time he came to Nepal in 1972, and from that time onwards he has been traveling to Nepal to and fro, from Nepal to France and France to Nepal. The man who needs no introduction in the art scene, in the documentary scene of Nepal, the Eric Valli. Let's welcome him to the show. Eric ji, namaste.
Namaste. Namaste.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Let's begin with the idea of 1972. What had happened actually in France that you had to travel from France towards Nepal?
No, it's not from France. I was in Afghanistan. And I had crossed Afghanistan on horseback when I was 18. Okay, and it was my first big adventure. And I got hooked to it, you know. I'm in Afghanistan, 1971, on horseback. I had bought a horse, a gun, and I crossed Afghanistan. I was 18. So it was my first big adventure. And then, it was the year after I was in Afghanistan, and it was a revolution, when the king got kicked out of Afghanistan. And I overstayed my visa, which I'm doing right now in Nepal, by the way, because your government told me that they would issue me after so long a resident visa. They asked my passport, and they haven't given it back to me for 2 months now. So I am without visa. So anyway, I was without visa in Afghanistan, and then they caught me. They put me in jail.
There in Afghanistan itself?
In Afghanistan, not yet in Nepal, but maybe soon, you know. So anyway, so they put me in jail for 3 days, and they told me, okay, you have to move out because it's a revolution and this and that. And I didn't feel like going back to France. So I went to Pakistan, to India, and was in Varanasi when I met another French guy who was going to Nepal. And I said, Nepal, I heard good stories about Nepal. So we hitchhiked on a Tata truck, actually, all the way from Raxol to Kathmandu, got there at night, slept in an hotel somewhere, I don't know exactly where, and the next morning, very early, because I wake up early morning, I found myself in Durbar Square, in Basantapur and this and that, and that's when I fell in love with Nepal, 1972, November, December. I fell in love with Nepal. I fell in love with an American girl who taught me my English, and we went trekking Everest, Annapurna, started to learn Nepalese and wanted to discover other areas of Nepal. And then started to go off the beaten track, and that's when I became a photographer.
Right. Yeah. So what was Nepal like in the year 1972? Most of the viewers do not know about it. Could you tell us more about it?
So it was very much a traditional Nepal. You know, Kathmandu was a small town surrounded by field, rice paddies and things like that, Japus working in the field, going from Basantapur to Swayambhu, we had to cross all these terraces full of rice, and the river, we had to cross the river on a tree trunk to go to Swayambhu. Then it was the same with Boda. Boda was surrounded by field and field by trees. There were it was mostly dirt road, bicycle, no cars or very few cars, very few motorbikes. So it was very peaceful, very, very green, and very quiet, very, very beautiful, very, very traditional. I remember the Japus, you know, coming with their black dress, with their red dress, with a black thing around, bringing their vegetable in Kathmandu. I remember doing endless a walk or a ride on my bike in this amazing valley. That's what makes me fall in love with Kathmandu Valley, and then later on with the mountains, yeah.
So in those days, were there a lot of tourists going to the expeditions?
I didn't mix with tourists. My life, I have always, you know, I mean, tourists, I mean, even the word, I mean, what is tourists, you know? They come for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, every day they have a program, bang, 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 bang. They are like machines, they don't quite understand, they see a lot of things, they don't understand much, because they have always a program and this and that. I mean, tourism is, for me, a kind of, it's slightly painful, you know? I mean, I always went out of the tourist trails myself, you know. I went first to Everest, okay, they were tourists. I went to Annapurna, it's beautiful, they were tourists. And the first thing I wanted to do after that was to go in tourist-less trails, where the Nepalese tradition was still very much alive, very much vibrant and unique. You know what I mean? So, I mean, somebody asked me yesterday morning, how I find my stories, you know, as a storyteller. And I find my stories by getting out of the main trails, going where other people don't go, you know. So I see tourists, you know, like flock of sheep going here and there, and I am completely kind of, I don't quite understand. I hate being a tourist myself. I love stay, you know, when I discover a place I like, you know, I just spend a year, 2 years, 3 years, you know, I stayed 3 years of my life in Dolpo, you know, having fun with these guys, you know, roaming the mountain with yaks and learning from them, learning their language, learning their tradition. For me, there is a big difference in between being a traveler and being a tourist, and it's very different. It's very, very different. Being a tourist, I hate being a tourist. I went to China lately. I was invited to do a book there and a series of films there, and I stayed 6 months on a small part of the country to do one of my latest books, actually, and it was great. But I stayed 6 months, you know. I didn't stay 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month, you know. I like getting deeper, understanding the people better, seeing the rhythm of the season, seeing the different works, you know, seeing the different seasons, seeing, you know, it's a very different kind of approach.
Like you said, you don't like being a tourist rather than you like being a traveler. The first time that you went to Dolpa, how did you learn about Dolpa for the first time?
So when I travel, okay, understand this. So when I travel is I look at for places nobody talks about. I look at for places that no guidebooks are written about, you know. So Dolpo was one of them, obviously. You know, in '81 when I went for the first time, a few people had been before, you know, Peter Mattison, George Scheller, Snellgrove, Corneille Jest had been there. They had crossed Dolpo, and the few pictures that they had published were very intriguing, very beautiful. It was a very remote part of Nepal. Very few Nepalis had been up there. It was a restricted area. I tried through your government to get a permission. They wouldn't give it to me. So what did I do? I just went, you know, through the checkpost at night and things like that. And I remember when I gave the king, your king, King Birendra, my second book on Dolpo, we were at the palace, and I gave him my book, and he was smoking his pipe, I remember, and very great gentleman. And we knew each other. We met in Paris several times, in his house several times also. And he looked at my book and he said, "Eric, you make me discover my own country."
Wow.
And then, yeah, wow, as you say. And then I said, "But if you knew Kati duka payo yokam gardakeri." And he looked at me and he said, "Why did you have so much pain, you know, going up there?" And I said, "Because your government think I am a spy and never issued me a visa. I had to do these books by you know, smuggling inside the Dolpo. You know, you should know I am not a spy anymore, you know." And then from that time on, I got permission to travel more or less everywhere in the Himalayas.
By that time, was say Foxundo a national park?
No.
It was not.
No, it was not. No. I think it became national park in the 90s.
In the 90s.
I went there the first time in the summer of '81.
Okay.
It was totally untouched. Totally untouched. It was like traveling in time. It was it was, you understand it, it was a big love story in my life. You know, I went there for 2-3 months in the summer of '81, and then I came back and I kept going back, and then published my first book, I think, I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember, maybe in the late '80s. Then I went on assignment for National Geographic in '91, and that time I got the permission by Niranjan Koirala, who just got me. He liked my work, and we went together actually with Niranjan in Foxundo. We went together with my daughters.
Like, so what was the way like? I mean, did you had to walk from Nepalganj?
No, we walked from Jumla, I guess, from Jumla. Jufal was Jufal open at the time, I don't remember. We went, the first time I went to Dolpo was from Johnson to Charka. Then I think afterwards I went from Jumla. Then afterwards, from Dunai, from Jufal, yeah, that's right, yeah.
How many days did you have to walk in those days?
Wow, from Jumla there were no roads, nothing, you know. So often I got stuck in Nepalganj, you know, because the plane wouldn't go, you know. You would wait sometimes 10 days to go to Jufal or Jumla. Now it's very different. But so walking from Jumla, getting to northern Dolpo, you have 2 passes, 3 passes above 5,500. You have 3 weeks walk or something like that, yeah.
Walk.
At least, yeah. With porters and things like that. I went in 1991 with my 2 daughters who were 3 and 1 years old. We had made docos, and we had porters, and they were carried around on horses, and I knew Tinley quite well already. So we were moving with Tinley's yak up into northern Dolpo, and it was 1991. It was April, May of 1991, I guess,
right.
yeah.
The story of the caravan is really a heart-touching one. every time I see it, I am full of tears because most of the time I've not seen this kind of story in my life ever. I mean, exchanging for salt and exchanging the yaks is quite a new story for us. What was it like when you for the first time saw it there with your own eyes?
Okay, so I mean, when I saw these caravans that nobody had talked about, that nobody, maybe some people had seen it, but nobody had written or had told me anything about these caravans. When I saw them, I was with Diane. It was maybe 85. I was with Tinley, by the way. I was in Tinley's house in Saldong. And then I saw this caravan, it was November, and I saw all these little dots going south and all these trails, because Tinley's house is very high up in Saldong. And then I saw on this trail down from the house, I saw all these hundreds and thousands of yaks going south. And I said, Tinley, kebayo, kebayo. Ani kinabane Tinley le malai kepani baneko China Escobarima. Nobody. You know, it had been going on for thousands of years, so it was very normal for them. But for me, it was really, it was the last great caravan in the Himalayas, you know. And then suddenly one morning, I see these thousands of yaks going south, and I said, Tinley, kebayo. And then he explained that, and I said, wow. And then we got a horse for Diane, because Diane was sick. And then we moved into this incredible pilgrimage of the Tibetan salt that they had brought from Tibet the summer before. So they crossed 2 passes above 5,500 and get to what they call Rong, the country of the valley. They got into Nepal in a way, you know, the fertile land of the southern Himalaya, part of the Himalaya. And then they traded, so they were Tibetan guys, trading with Hindu, you know, Kshetris and Tibetan, who had been surviving, helping one another across the highest mountain in the world, trading the salt of life for the grain of life. Wow. So when I discovered this story, I thought, wow. I mean, it was, because I didn't know anything about it. It was a dream I had when I was a kid, you know, because I read these books from 1940s, 1950s about Tibet, you know. So I knew about this Tibetan caravan, but I thought they were finished. You know, I thought they were finished. But they were still alive until now they are still going on, you know, but it's different. It's not the salt and the grain trade like before, you know. Now they bring alcohol from China, which is very, very bad. They bring kind of electronic stuff, plastic junk, and things like that. So it's very different, you know. But at the time when we were there, Diane and I, and when we shot Himalaya, when we shot Caravan, it was still very much alive. Very much alive, yeah.
Like you were telling me, you had love with the photography in the later years when you came to Nepal. What was the story like behind getting love with the photography?
So my father is a painter. So already I guess he gave me an eye, you know. And then when I lived in Nepal, in the very remote part of Nepal, as you understand, I just thought, he gave me a camera, my father gave me a camera. And I thought it was important to record. Tinley used to say, we have to make a you have to make a film about us before our culture melt like snow under the sun. Ami harko Sanskriti Bildaicha, no Nepali ma ke bhancha Bilaundaicha, Ami harko Sanskriti Bilaundaicha, yon jasto, ani yo bilne banda paile, tapaile amiaruko barima film banaidinus. Tiandeki, we made the film together, but I had this feeling long before. I knew that like everywhere in the world, you know, there's this mondialization, you know. I mean, everybody has a cell phone. is on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. I'm not on social media. But I see the uniformization of the planet. You know, I see it, and it's good and it's bad. I think, I don't know. Like always, there are good things and bad things to everything. But I saw that the Nepalese culture, which was still untouched in the very remote part of Nepal, the Ranatarus were completely untouched in the southwest. The Raji were totally untouched. The Dolpopa were totally untouched. The Gurung that I worked with when I did the Honey Hunters film and book and National Geographic article. So this part of Nepal were still very untouched because there were no roads. There were no guidebooks written about the Gurungs or the Arun or Dolpo or the Ranatarus. You know, even, you know, when I remember the king who said, "Eric, you make me discover my own country," I thought, wow, great, you know, great.
I think it was in the 1990s that another book was written by Stephen Bezruksa regarding the traveling route of Nepal in the 1990s, early 1990s.
And
about the trekking routes, and he has, by foot he has traveled a lot of places.
Okay.
And he had been to Karnali as well.
Okay.
And when he was there, he was talking about the shooting star falling down.
Okay.
It's a really nice story.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get back to the caravan itself. I mean, there are so many scenes that have mesmerized me, because for the first time in 2000, in the year 2000, I'd seen it for the first time. And during that time itself, the people, when they die, they were fed to the vultures. That was really a mesmerizing story for me. What was it like from the eyes of the foreigner, being there for the first time and seeing the corpses being eaten by the vultures?
Well, I think when I die, I want to be, how do you say, I want this to be done to me, you know. I mean, it's a great way to be recycled, you know. I think it's more original than being buried or being burned, you know. And anyway, up there is no wood. There is no wood, and the ground is just snow, it's just rocks. So it's very difficult to bury, it's very difficult to burn. It's very much a practical thing. In Tibet it's very common. So, I mean, how was it? I don't know. I mean, you know, one of my friends just died, and I was at the Ghat the other day, just 5-6 days ago, just before I went to Down, and I saw the cremation. I mean, given to the vulture is much more original, I think. No, yeah, sure. I mean, it's quite something, you know. Yeah.
Like feeding to vulture, like you said, it's being recycled, because you have lived all your life, and even your corpse is going to be used by somebody or some creature.
Yeah, I mean, it's. Yeah, I think it's, anyway, as I said, you know, I mean, in Dolpo or in Tibet, where this is practiced, you know, the land is a piece of rock, so you cannot dig it. There is no tree, because it's all above tree line. You know, all the villages in northern Dolpo are above 4,000, and the tree line in Nepal is 3,500, 3,700. So I mean, it's a very practical way to recycle a body, you know. I think it's, and then you go, you become part of a bird, and you travel, you see the world in a different manner suddenly, you know. Yeah, no, it's quite, yeah, it's kind of powerful, shocking and beautiful. I like it, I have to say.
Yet another story from the caravan. I really loved the way 2 years back I talked with Tenzing Norbu, the painter.
Yeah, sure.
And he was telling me a guy with a long hair for the first time came to the monastery there, and I was working there at that time. I didn't know the language itself.
Yeah, he didn't speak Nepalese. Yes.
And he told me after 3 months I'm going to come again, and if she wanted to go to Kathmandu, this is the right time after 3 months. You had told him, and you disappeared from there. And right after the 3 months, you were there with some pencils and gifts there for the first time. I mean, were you traveling around in those days?
Yeah, okay. I was on assignment for National Geographic for 9 months in Dolpo at the time. And I had told the Geographic that me, I am a foreigner. Okay, so I have an outside view on Dolpo or on anything. I'm not a Nepali, so I have an outsider view of Nepal somehow. And my father being a painter, as I told you, I just thought that it would be very nice in the book that I was going to publish on Dolpo to have a different view of Dolpo, to have an insider view, to have an interior view of Dolpo. And the guy was a great, he was 19 when I met him for the first time, and I knew that he was going to become a great painter. Okay, I knew he was so, his touch was so elegant, his figures were so elegant, and he was such a handsome guy also. There had been painters in his family for 5 generations, from father to son, tac. So I asked him to come, and as I was taking pictures, he stayed with me, traveled with us, with my family, by the way, with my wife and my kids. And then I had brought some paper, some brush, some pencils and things like that. And as I was taking pictures, he would draw, and he made a beautiful series of painting not on the gods of Dolpo, not on the god of Dolpo, but on the day-to-day life of Dolpo, on the harvest, on the plowing, on the making of a house, on such a village in the winter, such a village in the summer, such a village during the harvest time. It was just like another way of recording this melting culture. And it was a great experience, and Nobu and I, we became great friends. And he lived in my house in Bad Patini for a long time, for many years actually. Like Tinley also. Tinley used to live with us in Paris and in Kathmandu for a long time. My house in Bad Patini was the house of the Dolpopas, the house of the Gurungs, the house of the Ranatarus and this and that. It was a big house, and we welcomed many people when they came to Kathmandu, as they welcomed us when we were staying with them.
Remembering those days, back in those days, in order to travel was itself a great thing. But to travel there with the crew, what was the experience like? During the shooting of the caravan, you had a great crew, I think.
So, okay, I had a great crew. Very minimalist. We were 12 at the most, 12 French guys and girls, by the way. Very good technician, in a great physical shape, because the shooting was 9 months up there. In two times. We had a break in the middle of maybe 1 month, 1.5 months, because after 4.5 months we were dead. So we went back to France for a rest, for editing, seeing what we had done. Then we knew what we were missing. We went back in Dolpo, and we shot all the snow scene in February, when we had these gigantic snowstorms. Which shows so beautifully in the film. Because I hadn't seen the film for maybe 15 years or maybe more. I never look at my work, you know, the work I have done. So I saw the film yesterday, and I saw many mistakes. You know, I saw many mistakes. But one thing I can say is that it was total madness. It was total madness. It was crazy, because there is not a single special effect in it, you know. It's all real stuff, real characters. The beauty of their face is incredible. I mean, they are so handsome, these people, you know.
So
I mean,
naturally said.
Yeah, I mean, and then somebody asked me, but why didn't you use actors from Kathmandu. But the face of Kathmandu people are different from the face of these mountain people. They are carved by the mountain. That's why they are so handsome, you know. So I couldn't use actors from Kathmandu, and anyway, you know, I wouldn't ask these natural actors like Tinley, like Labrang Tundup, I wouldn't ask them anything more than what they were doing. You know, they were doing for thousands of years. You know, what I want to record is their tradition, their life, you know, that they have had for thousands of years, you know, in Dolpo. Always the same thing. This caravan, without which they wouldn't have been able to survive, you know. So I was not asking them anything out of the ordinary, which would have been very difficult for you, for instance, to do up there, you know, because, you know, you would have died, I guess, you know, something like that, you know. So it was very exciting to shoot with them. Difficult because they are non-actors, so it takes longer. But I think one of the reasons of the success of this film is that it's 100% real.
As a filmmaker, as a documentary maker, did you had the story in hand?
Caravan is not a documentary. Yeah, it's a feature. It's all written. It's all, you know. The other films are documentary, like Honey Hunters, like Beyond the Clouds, like Himalayan Gold Rush, like all these things. They are documentaries. But this one is a natural fiction. You know, I mean, that's it. Yeah.
Did you have the storyline back in your head in those days before making it, and you should click by click, or how was it like?
No, the writing of the film took 3 years. 3 years, okay? Because I had this experience after living 2 years in Dolpo. I knew I had published 2 books, National Geographic article. I started to know a little bit about Dolpo, the caravan, Tinley, and things like that. And it's one day Tinley was in our house in Bad Patini, and then we were looking a movie because I have a video projector, and we were looking in the evening. Tinley was the grandfather of my kids, of my first kids, you know, Sarah and Camille, and he lived for months and months with us, and in Paris also. He came to Paris for a long time, and we were very, very dear friends, you know. And so I had made 2 books on Dolpo, I think, 2 books, I think. And then we were looking at The Seven Samurai by Kurosawa, the famous Japanese film director, amazing films. And then he was very impressed. It's a film of the 50s, I guess. He was very impressed, and then he turned back to me and he said, "Eric, you make books about us, you know. Why don't you make a film?" Tack. That was it. So I knew already about his life, and in his real life, it's not his son who dies in the mountain like at the beginning of Caravan, but in his real life, in fact, his younger brother was killed by in a feud by another family for a question of yaks and things like that. So it was a very interesting beginning. And then I wanted the film to be about these incredible caravans, the last one in the Himalaya, among the last one in the world. You know, there are some in Mali, I think, in Africa. Camel caravan, soul caravan. I guess now it's finished also. But anyway, I wanted to make a great film about these epic adventure of this caravan. Then we worked with many different scriptwriters. I had already written books, articles about Dolpo, but making a feature film, you know, is very complicated. You know, very complicated. It's very tricky.
I still vividly remember one of the incident there in the caravan itself. The act which had been traveling towards Say Foxindo, it just fell down.
Yeah, but this I saw it myself few years before the film. Yeah, and I have the pictures in one of my book, in my first book on Dolpo. I saw a yak falling down there. So it was just something that I copied from what I saw. But otherwise, I mean, the film is a feature film, but it's very much, as I said, a natural fiction. There is nothing which is not in the tradition of these people. So at the same time it's entertaining, it's a great adventure film, it's very human, but ethnographically speaking it's 100% correct.
After The Caravan became a blockbuster, by any chance did your lifestyle or did your life change?
No, you know, I mean, no. No, I mean, I just came back to Nepal to find out other stories before everything becomes the same, you know, before the Dolpopa and noirs and everybody runs after money and wear the same North Face jacket and the same jean and the same Nike shoes and go abroad to make money. And you know, I wanted to. No, I never. What drives my life? What drives my life? My life is driven by very much a love story I have for your country, obviously, for your tradition, your culture, but for adventure, because I mean, for me, each of my books and each of my films or whatever are great adventure, great discoveries, great learning experiences, you know, but no. I live very simply. I don't have a car. I have a house outside of Paris. All of my money goes into traveling and learning and meeting people and doing things like that, you know. But no, I live and my family live very simply. Many people think that I have made a lot of money with Caravan, which, yeah, sure, I made money with Caravan, but I mean, people don't realize, you know, they just think, oh, he came to Dolpo for 9 months and he made so much money. Caravan was 5 years of my life, you know. So it's then suddenly you see things in a different way, and then we could have failed, because I tell you frankly, I made this film giving 150% of myself into the film, okay? But I never thought that it would be a success. I never even, I don't do things for them to be successful. I do things in a very kind of selfish way, because I think they are interesting and I want to learn another way of life, for instance, you know. That's why I deal with different cultures, you know.
Like you were telling me, you had not seen that movie for the last 15 years. Yeah. What might be the reason behind it, not seeing your own work?
Because when I see it, I see many mistakes first. And then, well, I was touched yesterday because Tinley's great grandson was there. Labrang Tundub, the shaman's great grandson was there also. So there were people I knew. I was very deeply connected with. We were there. We were very touched. So it was a very moving experience for me. Yesterday I saw the beauty of their face, the strength of these characters, and I was touched, and I felt people in the room being very touched. Some of them were crying, you know, so I was very touched. But no, I don't look at my work, you know. I'm always focused on new discoveries, on new things, on new...
The success and the failure does not matter to you anymore.
I never thought in these terms, you know. I mean, I do something as well as I can, and then you give it in a book, in a film, and then it doesn't belong to you anymore. It just belongs to other people. People like it, don't like it. Most of my books have sold, most of my article has been read, and and this and that. So I'm very happy, you know. I have a good karma, I guess, you know. But so some of them work better than others. Caravan was a big success in my life, but Honey Hunters was a big success also, and things like that. So you know, whatever happens, happens. I do my best, and after I deliver it, people like it or don't like it. I prefer when they like it, obviously, you know.
Eric, when we were talking off air yesterday, you were telling me one of the rituals where one of your daughter, when she was ill, a big bonfire was created and her name was written down and it was thrown to the fire and she got healed.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Could you tell us more about it?
Yeah, when so 1991, we went, Diane and I and Sarah and Camille, we were 3 years old and 1 year old, went to Dolpo for a long time. Then we were in Saldang, and then Sarah, who is 3 years old, started to get weak and sick, and you know, and then you are in the middle of nowhere, 3 weeks work, 3 passes above 5,000, you know, away from any strip, you know, hospital in Jumla at the time, or, you know, you better not go there, you know. So we got really very worried, you know. And I was staying with Labrang Tundup, who plays the shaman, the dummy, in the film, his real life, okay? And who is a very good friend of mine, great character, great guy. And so we were staying in his house in Saldang. And then, so we had antibiotics, but I'm not a doctor, you know. So what did she have? She was feeling very weak, didn't want to eat, and she was 3 years old, you know. Oh, sorry, we really were very nervous. And Labrang Tundup said, Sultan Avernus. Then he did a mo, you know, like the Tibetan do with their, with their beads, and he said, one of the bad, heavy, got after you because I don't even remember what. And then don't worry, we have to do a kurim. It's an exorcism, you know. So we went together to Yangtze, Gompa, which is a beautiful Gompa just along the Tibetan border. And we made a kurim, Tapayarule Nepali Make Boncha, you know, an exorcism. So her name was written on a paper. People with big masks were dancing. I have pictures of that actually. Dancing around a bonfire on the middle of this incredible landscape with this wild god jumping around. And her name was written on the paper, was thrown into the fire. And actually she felt better. She had a jaundice, you know. Oh. It was not such a big deal. She had a jaundice. Maybe 2-3 days later she turned all yellow, and then that's it. And it would have been a bad idea to give her antibiotic. Mm-hmm. And so was it Labrang who did a great job, or was it just nature who just went its course, you know? But anyway, it's an interesting story, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting story.
There is yet another story in the caravan itself. For the first time, when this boy, little boy, sees the tree for the first time, he's really amazed. And he's looking at it for a long time. And the story ends there itself.
Yeah, that's right. That was a good ending. So there is a story about the ending. We wrote a script which took us 3 years, and we didn't know what the ending was going to be. We didn't know at all what the ending was going to be. And I found it just there. I saw the tree and the kid, and it's real. The kid saw a tree for the first time. So that was the end of the natural end of the story. You know, it was, as I said yesterday, you know, at the beginning of a film, of a beginning of, let's say, a beginning of a film, you know, you push yourself into it, you do the casting, you do the writing, then you start shooting. And after a while, you are not the director anymore. After a while, the project itself, the film itself, the character, the land itself tells you, Eric, you do this, you do that, you don't do this, you do that. After a while, the film, the characters around you, the land around you tells you what to do. And that's exactly what happened with the tree, you know. We wrote maybe 10 different endings, you know. And we went to shoot the film, and we didn't know which one of the maybe 3 best endings we would choose. And that's 11 endings that we found just by seeing the tree and the kid being mesmerized in front of the tree. I mean, you realize that in Dolpo, in northern Dolpo, Rook Yotaponichaina, Ernus. You know, it's just like the moon, you know, somehow. So that was perfect. That was really perfect.
Our talks remind me of the artists whom I had been interviewing from a long time. They also tell me that when they are making the art itself, after a while, their canvas starts telling them what color to use, what images to put there, everything.
It's the same. It's exactly the same, yeah. I think every creative endeavor is like that, you know. I think because you jump into this crazy project, you know. Right now, Nobu, Tenzing Nobu, the painter, is making 2 tonkas, 16 meters long, 2.2 meters tall. You realize bigger than this, you know. 3 years in the making, and we were looking at them just few nights ago, and he was telling me the same thing as you said. You know, after a while, there is a creative magic happening, something that is born from the work that you do, which gives back to you. It says to you, Eric, don't see it like that. Do it another way, and that's the right way. And I guess for a composer, music composer, it's the same thing. For a painter, it's the same thing. For a dancer, I guess, a choreographer, it must be the same thing. After a while, there is a dialogue in between your work and yourself.
In the same line, yet another story of honey hunters is also a mesmerizing story of Nepal that had never been explored before. How did you get with that story?
Yeah, that's an interesting, that was a big adventure also. How did it happen? It happened one evening, I was in a Gurung territory, and I lost Lakpa Gyalzen Sherpa, who was at the time my companion, my translator, my assistant, everything, my great friends before all. You know, he was a fantastic accomplice, this man. And then we were in the forest, and we got separated. I got lost, I was alone. And then it started to rain, and I met a sheepherder, a Gurung sheepherder, and he said, come, I have a little hut somewhere. And so it was in the forest, so 3,500 or something like that, above the villages. And we ran, it's raining, we ran into his little bamboo hut. It was all bamboo, there were no plastic at the time, okay? No tarps, no, you know, everything was so much sustainable, so much in harmony with nature, their life, all their houses, their clothes, anyway. And it has all disappeared now. So the guy offers me the hospitality, it's raining, we are in this little hut, I cannot stay up, you know, because the house is, you know, very small, and there are sheep on the right, sheep on the left, and there is a little piece of the house which is for the two of us. There is a fire in the middle, and there is one sleeping bed, enfin not a bed, it's just a beaten earth on the right, one beaten earth on the left. And And then I'm tired, Lakpa is I don't know where. I'm all with this herder alone, young guy. And then I have tea and sugar, and you know, and biscuits. And himself, he has a fire, he has a roof, everything is perfect. So we eat a little bit together, and then I fall asleep, and the next morning I wake up. He had put his big wool blanket onto me, very beautiful hospitality, and then I look up into the beams on top of me, and I see these big coils of rope, these big, you know, big thing like this, you know, and then it's so strange, you know, and I tell him, Tiokerio, and he says, well, it's a ladder, barang baneko. Keko lagi barang, and he talks Gurung Nepali, and he mero Nepali titira mochaina, and he ulai baneko tio malai decadinus. So he takes off this big coil of woven bamboo rope and opens it into the meadow, and then it was a ladder made out of bamboo, which was 50 meters long. And I say, what the hell is this stuff? And then he explained me, but I don't understand him. And then he takes me to cliff, you know, big cliff, you know, and he says, you see these black things up there, these big, black, round things like this, huge. They are bee nests, wild bee nests. And my father used to go and harvest the honey of these bees. Wow. And I said, where is your father? And he said, well, he died 7 years ago. And do you do it? Is there anybody in the valley who do it? Ah, no, nobody. It's too dangerous. No. So then, that's how I heard about the story. But I didn't find my honey hunter yet. So then I decided to explore every valley coming down from the Himalaya, one after the other, in search of honey hunter. So I met some new ones, some young ones, but they were, I wanted a master. I wanted a real master who knew all the God, all the tradition, and things like that. And it took me 1.5 years. Finally, I found him. I met some Gurkha guys, some people who had been in the Gurkha army, the British army, who had fought in the Second World War. And they were showing me the Victoria Cross medals and things like that. And I said, hey guys, and they told me about fighting in Europe and in France and in Italy and things like that. And I said, wow, guys, what a great adventure and this and that. They said to me, yeah, but the greatest adventure is not us. The greatest adventure is another wild guy who lives up there, you know, and his name is Manilal. And I said, wow, what are you talking about? The guy is a honey hunter. And I thought, wow, okay, let's go. So I got in the village up there, close to the forest, the last village, and they told me, oh, he's in the forest, he's harvesting honey and this and that. And so I waited for him, and finally, in a funny way, we became kind of, after some, at the beginning we didn't connect so well. He was very suspicious of me. Okay. But after a while we got friends, and we went together in the cliff, and the adventure started, and I stayed a long time with them. I stayed many seasons. I did many seasons. There is a season in the spring, a season in the fall. So each time I would go harvest honey with Manilal. And he would come to Kathmandu also. He came to Kathmandu many times. And we became very good friends. And I think I published in 87. 1987? Yeah, 1987. But, you know, I worked 2-3 years on it, you know, on and off. But, yeah, I mean, I have never done a big story without spending at least a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years sometime on each story. You know, you know, my son not long ago was asking me, what is the best time in your life? And okay, sure, looking at one of my books, when it was just printed, it's kind of interesting, you know, it's kind of, but the most interesting time for me is when I am there, with the Gurung, with the Dolpopa, with the Ranataru, with the Raji. You know, this is the most exciting time of my life, when I am really alive with a big A, alive. Where every day is a discovery, is a learning experience, where I meet so many incredible traditions, incredible people, where I learn so much, where I have so much fun with them and them with me, where we share. You know, for the last 2 years I'm doing a new story, and I was with my daughter, who speaks very good Nepalese because she grew up in Nepal, and I was with my son, who starts speaking, he learned languages like this again. And it was so much fun. For the 2 last years I was in an area completely where there is nobody. In 6 months of trek I saw one foreigner in 6 months, yeah. And nobody sees foreigners there. And then I discovered this beautiful story, which I'm writing right now. And then it's so much fun. Every turn of every curve of the trail, you discover new landscape, new people, new light, new forest, new mountain, new rocks, new camps. You know, and it's what I love about my life.
The story of the honey hunters is a kind of vista even for the Nepalis, the windows to look from. I mean, being there in the remotest part of the Lomjung in those days, I don't think there were vehicles going there in those days.
No, you had to walk. Lomjung, kina Lomjung maneko tapaile?
Honey hunters. Yeah. Was it there? Was it from there?
I never said where it was. Makaile pani baneko chaina. It's just the beginning of our talk, you know. I mean, if somebody, many of my books, I never said where it was. Tsongbu, my first book, I never said where it was. The Princess of the Jungle, the National Geographic article, and the book, I never said where it was. The Raji book, I never said where it was. And, you know, when we talked about tourists and travelers, you know, I think, you know, tourism, okay, brings a lot of money to some part of Nepal, okay, right. But it has a very bad effect on the tradition, on the culture. So, I mean, if somebody wants to discover where the Ranatarus or the honey hunters are, you know, they will have to do like me, meaning they will have to spend time in Nepal to understand, to learn about your culture, to learn the language, to get lost here and there, and finally, when they'll discover the honey hunters, it will be a very different meeting. It won't be like click, click, click. It will be, we'll sit together, we'll speak the same language, I'll know more about you. So I want the people who wants to
not to discover, not to tell the place itself.
No. In 3 or 4 of my books, I never said where the place was, because I don't want to bring bus loads, charter load of tourists there, and we would destroy the culture like this, you know. I mean, I have a duty to record your tradition, but I have a duty also to preserve it. You know what I mean? It's very important. And if foreigners want to discover the honey hunters, or other people, yeah, they will have to give of themselves. They'll have to learn language, they'll have to learn traditions, and when they meet finally, then it will be a very different human experience for them. You know, for them, I mean, for the Nepalese and for the travelers that they would have become the foreigners. You know what I mean? Sure. I think it's a very important thing in my work, yeah. It's a very important. I am not, okay, I have been publicizing Nepal, obviously. You know, doing caravan or honey hunters, or I have been attracting foreigners into Nepal, okay? Obviously, you know. But it's not my main goal. It's not my main goal at all. At all, okay?
So you want to show the story, but still preserve the place from the tourist?
I think it's a big responsibility, yeah. And then the people who would get there won't be tourists anymore. They will be travelers, ready to spend time with them, ready to learn from them. It will be a human relationship rather than just a money relationship. You know what I mean? It will be a very different thing, very different experience.
So while shooting the movie or the Honey Hunters, do you remember any of the funny incidents there? There are so many. I think so.
Well, it was a very, it was a very tough shoot, okay? First, it was my first film. Then I came with a French guy who called himself a director at the beginning, until suddenly I realized that his wife didn't want him to go in the cliff, you know. So, because he had 3 kids and, okay. So then I found myself on the middle of the cliff with a Super 16 camera on the middle of tens of thousands of the biggest bees in the world, you know, Apis dorsata that big, you know. And having to direct the film myself, to shoot the film myself and to direct it myself. So it was a very intense experience with Manilal. Manilal is quite an incredible character. He's one of these legendary characters. This big, you know, very thin, no protection at all. He has his old Gurkha pants that he bought in some place, I don't know. And he had a kind of t-shirt made out of shisnu and you know, I mean, the guy was totally wild. He had accepted me, and we had this kind of very intense relationship because I was the only one coming down with him in the cliff. Even the other Gurung people wouldn't go down with him. I was the only one, and we were very close to one another. You know, we were that far in the cliff. You know, 150 meters tall cliff. We were this far from each other, and the bees all around, the rope, the camera. Sylvain was a very good climber, a friend of mine who was helping me with the camera, who was my camera assistant, hanging from the cliff, the smoke, the bees, the heat, the height, freaky. Then in the evening, after harvesting, I don't know how many bee nests, we would find ourselves in the camp, which were some caves somewhere in the forest, lighting a fire and eating some naorko masu, some you know, wild bees, because they are hunters at the same time, and eating some diro and shisnu, and it was a very intense experience. Funny time. Yeah, we used to laugh because Manila used to make fun of me, because, you know, I was on myself on ropes, you know, on nylon rope, and he said, you know, but you are going to sleep. He didn't know Juma, he didn't know, you know, all the climbing gear I had. He didn't understand it at the beginning, and then he thought I could go down with him and this and that. So we had fun at the beginning, but it was a very intense shooting.
Was it dangerous?
Well, yeah, sure. You make a mistake, you are dead. You know, you make a mistake, you are dead. Yeah, sure. It's very dangerous. Yeah, sure.
So, did you get to taste the honey afterwards, after harvesting it?
Yeah, sure. Sure.
What was the experience like?
But the honey, it's very strong honey. And then one time with Addison, who was a very dear friend of mine, we was there yesterday evening. And with Diane, my wife, in the spring we had some mad honey, the Lagnima Kayo, Amiarule. And then it was not such a good experience actually, but because we became completely blind and couldn't walk and had to, and the Gurums, they laughed so much of seeing us completely blind. We turned blind, the 3 of us. Then they took us into a sleeping bag, and the next morning we were okay. But it was not a good experience at all, yeah. So that was a big fun. The groom laughed a lot at our expenses, but otherwise, yeah, I mean, all the shooting are kind of tense and funny at times, and a great experience for us, a great experience for the local Nepalese also. You know, they see these weird foreigners doing all these crazy things. So I mean, all my shooting have been kind of tense at time, you know, very tense. When we shot in the snow, you know, caravan, it was totally mad, you know. The middle of the cliff with the thousands of bees on our nose, you know. That was tough also, but my shooting are very interesting, very funny at times also, you know. Very great human experience for my crew, for the Dorpo people, for the groom people. Yeah, very nice experience, mainly, all the time, yeah.
Eric, looking back, you have lived a life in such a way that nobody can imagine. I mean, shooting all those documentaries, all those movies, it's really a tough experience, I think. But how do you define your life yourself, if you need to define it?
When I look at it, I see that my life, I am 71, I just turned 71 a month ago, and I see my life as realizing the dream I had when I was a kid. When I was a kid, when I was 12 years old, I dreamed of exploring the world, of sharing life with these incredible characters, these legendary characters at Tinley, Labrang, Manilal, Badu, Nandalala, you know, I mean, I just, so in a way I had a very good karma, you know, because my life as an adult is realizing the dream I had as a child, very much, very much. My life is very childish, actually, you know, it's very naive in a way, it's very kind of weird, you know. I come all the way to 71 and I keep running after my dream, after discovering more of the world, more of Nepal, more of your tradition, more of these incredible characters that I share my life with and who belongs to the Himalaya, you know, who belongs to Nepal, you know. So, I mean, my life is a big love story with your country mainly. Yeah.
Could somebody tell, it's all the chapter of your life, whatever you have been doing, from one story jumping into another one, then to another one, then to another one. Are these all chapters that needed to be written?
You know, I don't know if my life is so interesting. I mean, yeah, okay, I guess. If my life, many people say, oh Eric, you are so lucky. And then I am mean to these people. I say, it's not luck, it's a choice. If you wanted to live my life, you would live it, you know. And why don't you live it? Because it's a tough life. But for me, there is no other choice. This is my life. This is the life I want to live. I'm here now at the right place in my life, you know. But many people say, oh, how lucky you are. No, I'm not lucky. I just choose to have this life. And because, I mean, many people romanticize my life, you know. I mean, it's very kind of glamorous to be published with National Geographic, to be doing film and things like that. But it's a tough life. I like tough life.
So if you had not been a documentary maker, or if you have not been a writer, what would you have become?
I would have been bored. I would have been really bored. You know, I mean, my life is here now, doing what I do. I have no regrets. I have few regrets, but you know, I mean, this is my trail, this is my life.
Eric, if you are given chance to change anything in your life, what would that be?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing, really nothing. Being a better writer, but nothing. No, I wouldn't change anything, no.
What would your message be for the directors who have been working around in the movies? what kind of message would you like to give them, to the novice?
Well, a film is a good script, is a good script, is a good script. And a good script is hard to find, hard to write. And it's a profession that you do out of passion. I'm just this kind of little kid roaming the world, looking much older, but I'm just a little kid still, you know, that's it. It's kind of dramatic when you think about it. It's, you know, being 71 years of age, being this little kid still roaming the world in search of adventure and discoveries.
You have changed a lot of the lifestyle of a lot of people. I mean, the people from Dolpa, they still remember you, they still think of you as somebody who had been there, and after you getting there, their life has changed in a positive way. Do you take credit for that?
You know, it's just life, you know, no, I don't take credit for that, no. No, I don't take credit for that. It's just life, and you know, every meeting in between two human beings brings changes. So the meeting I had with Dolpo was a big meeting, was a really big thing in my life, and in their life also, because suddenly I just made them discover something else, you know, and then they just decided that their life was going to be different. But it was their choice. It was their choice. On y arrivé, tu on y arrivé affamé, choose Gariko. It was not a choice which was imposed by the outside. It was a choice that they did themselves to go to Kathmandu, to get educated and things like that. So it's a very different thing than having a choice imposed onto you, you know. So this I like. Dolpo people are very bright, they are very hardworking. Many of them are making a very good life in New York, in the States and things like that. They are not the one who go to Dubai and Malaysia and Indonesia. Many of them speak very good English. I was with Tinley's grandson who is studying filmmaking in India. So I mean, these are positive changes. Yeah, that's right, it's very positive changes. But it's not me who just change their life, it's just or friendship or connection or the door I open to them and the doors they open to me. You know, it just, you know, every meeting is a trade, is an exchange, and you learn from me, I learn from you. You know, that's it, that's life. But I don't take any credit, no. You know, who am I? I'm just a Boy Scout. I'm just a Boy Scout. I'm just a kind of Tintin roaming the world.
Eric, thank you so much for your time. It was really a nice time with you.
Good.
Thank you so much.
No worries. All the best, and thank you for all of you guys.